If you are registering with Learning Disability Services directly out of high school or college, it is important to understand some differences in how accommodations are determined at the university level. High schools fall under the Ministry of Education and use the Education Act to determine access to accommodations. Universities, on the other hand, fall under the Ministry of Training, colleges, and universities, and access to accommodations are based on the Human Rights Code. The main difference is that in high school, accommodations could be put in place informally or without a clear diagnosis, based on a student demonstrating that they were struggling. At the post-secondary level, however, under the Human Rights Code, accommodations are only provided if there is documentation to support a diagnosed disability. As a result, you are asked to provide documentation in the form of a psychoeducational assessment for a learning disability or medical documentation from a specialist in the field of ADHD or ASD. If your documentation is older than 5 years old, does not include a diagnosis, or you have never been formally tested, you can still register with LDS using the documentation that you do have. However, in using the documentation that you do have, we will need to discuss what will be appropriate for you based on this documentation, and you will be asked to eventually provide LDS with updated documentation. We can certainly help you with this process. Why do we need recent documentation? We need recent documentation to ensure that we are upholding the guidelines on accessible education and the Ontario Human Rights Code. Under this guideline and code, post-secondary institutions have the duty to accommodate. Setting of accommodations is a collaborative process informed by the student and his or her documentation, the disability counselor, and the professor. An accommodation is considered appropriate if it results in the equal opportunity for students to achieve while meeting the student's disability-related needs. At all times, it is essential that the accommodations being put in place support the student while upholding the same standards and objectives of the course and degree of study. It's important that all accommodations at the university level uphold the academic integrity of the courses. It's important that students understand what accommodations can provide for them. They provide alternate ways to learn and demonstrate one's learning. They allow students to compensate for areas of deficit, thereby leveling the playing field. They also provide an equal educational opportunity to pass or fail courses. And lastly, they may change from course to course and semester to semester depending on the requirements of the course and the needs of the student. On the other hand, accommodations do not modify or lower the standards or requirements of a course of study. They don't provide an unfair advantage to students with disabilities. And lastly, they do not necessarily guarantee success in a course or high grades.